بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Before we start, I want to repeat my request to you to pray for humanity. Everyone who's in difficulty or having problems, regardless of their religion or their sect or nationality or color or creed, may Allah keep all human beings safe and sound and free from harm and protect them. After the Farad prayers, we will have funeral prayers in absentia by Bana Namaz Janaza for the Palestinians who've been murdered during the previous week by the apartheid Zionist state of colonizers and occupiers called Israel, and also for our brother Inayat Muhammad, who was at one time president of our branch in Trinidad and Tobago, who passed away last week. He actually set up a printing press, a company, because our branch was having difficulties getting their material printed. And Allah blessed him with great success for doing this for the Jamaat. The first verse I want to recite to you is from chapter 18, verse 29. And it reads, وَقُلِ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ إِنَّا أَعْتَدْنَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ نَارًا أَحَاطَ بِهِمْ سرادقها وإن يستغيثوا يغاثوا بماء كالمخل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا. And say, truth is from your Lord. So let him who please believe, and let him who please disbelieve. Surely we have prepared for the iniquitous a fire, an enclosure of which we enclose them. And if they cry for water, they are given water like the molten brass, scalding their faces, evil the drink, and ill the resting place. The next one is, I'll just read the translation for the next, which is chapter 6, verses 109. Sorry, 108 and 109. And if Allah had pleased, they would not have set up others besides Allah. And we have not appointed you a guardian over them, and you are not placed in charge of them. And abuse not those whom they call upon besides Allah, lest exceeding the limits they abuse Allah through ignorance. Thus to every people have we made their deeds fair seeming. Then to their Lord is their return, so he will inform them of what they did. I've recited these verses because I want to consider the concept of freedom. So the first verse says, whoever wishes, let him believe, and whoever wishes, let him disbelieve. And the next one says, we have not appointed you a keeper over them, a guardian over them. And do not even abuse the false gods that they set up in competition with God, lest they abuse God. So you can only believe in a religion other than Islam, for example, if you have a freedom to choose, if you have a freedom of expression. And I want to compare that complete freedom of expression that Muslims have. And there are many examples, and some I gave last week or the week before, about how people ask questions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Before the Battle of Badr, at the Battle of Uhud, about Hazrat Zainab Radhiyallahu Ta'ala, about her divorce, and list is a long one. They were free to express their views. But I want to compare that with what is extolled as the great Western virtue of freedom of expression and etc. I was in the United States, and I was talking to an American, and this was one of the things he is told. Oh, you know, in America, we have freedom of expression and belief and so on. So I said, okay, I believe Israel to be a terrorist state. Get me space on radio, television, newspapers to say that, an advertisement. And he said, no, 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 that is wrong. I said, well, did I ask you to approve this? You told me I've got freedom to express this. Express anything I believe to be true. I believe this to be true, and I want to preach that to people. And he said, well, any media organization that does that, all other advertisers will leave them, and it will go bankrupt, and its staff will starve. So I said, what you're saying is that economic sanctions are used in United States to control people's freedom to express themselves. I mean, you can, if somebody expresses something that you don't like, you can arrest them and put them in jail. Or you can make their employer bankrupt so that they lose their job, they have no money for food or housing, and they die on the streets homeless, starving from hunger. The result is the same. My son rang the New York Times to test them. He said the same thing to them. I want to take a full-page advertisement for 1 week. And they were all over him. And he said, well, here is the text. Israel is a terrorist state. And the lady said, I'm sorry, we can't run this advertisement. And he said, why? And they wouldn't give him a reason. And he said, put me through to a manager, put me through to a directorate. And she said, no one is going to agree to run this advertisement. So where's this freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of action that we hear so much about? Many United States, American states, they have anti-boycott laws and executive orders forcing companies to trade with not just Israel, but also the illegal settlements in occupied West Bank. And it will interest you to know that 78% of Americans, 250 million of them, live in states which have such laws. 27 states, more than half, have adopted laws or policies to penalize businesses if they say that a settlement on the West Bank, which is supposed to be Palestine, has been declared illegal by United Nations and we won't trade with them. That state sanctions them. Where is the freedom for that business, that organization, that individual? Individuals lose their jobs in such states. In January 2019, the US Senate passed a bill that endorsed and approved of these laws. So where is this freedom that is extolled? Rashida Tlaib, I think her name is, she's either a congressman, I think she's a congressman, the only Palestinian who's been elected to Congress. She made a speech in which she called Israel an apartheid state, in which she said, she's a Democrat, in which she said Biden is supporting Israeli genocide in Gaza, and there should be a Palestinian state from the sea to the river. And these gentlemen got together and passed a resolution denouncing her. Her own party, Democrats, Republicans, joined them to censure this lady for daring to express her opinion that Israel is an apartheid state. So where is this freedom that Americans and the British keep on talking about? Well, I mentioned the British. Is it any different? No, it's not. Whenever UK, I've said this previously, whenever in the news media, the word Hamas is mentioned. The commentator adds, declared a terrorist organization. But when they talk about settlements on occupied West Bank, why don't they add settlements declared illegal by the United Nations? Why? Because they're trying to brainwash you by repeatedly saying Hamas declared terrorist, Hamas declared terrorist, and cleaning Israel's occupation and apartheid and genocide in the West Bank. And the reason is obvious. Why do they want to do that? Because most British establishment is anti-Muslim. Why is it that the British Prime Minister and the Home Secretary try and coerce the Police Commissioner for London to ban a march? Free Palestine. Why does the Home Secretary say that it's a hate march? Why is it okay for Ukrainians to march through London demanding freedom? Isn't that hatred of Russians? They want to leave Russia. Isn't that hatred? You give them arms and armaments in Ukraine to kill Russians. And you support free Ukraine. But when it is free Palestine, then suddenly march should be banned because it's hate march. No, the only reason is, yes, there is hate, but it's British establishment's hate of Muslims, which is exemplified by Sunak and whatever her name is, calling the Commissioner of Police. And my hat's off to the Commissioner of Police and the Metropolitan Police that they refused to give in to political pressure. And they said they stand by their constitutional duty, which is that a march can only be banned if they have evidence that there may be riots or damage to property and lives and so on, if they're in danger. Did Rishi Sunak invite the Commissioner of Police to Downing Street to ban marches in support of Ukraine, or for that matter, Israel? But the most glaring example in the British political system of hate for Muslims was the removal of Jeremy Corbyn as leader of opposition. The only British politician who had the courage to say that the Israeli system is an apartheid and Israel is acting illegally and against international law, he was removed unceremoniously by the Labour Party. People keep on asking me to denounce what happened in what Hamas did on the 7th of October. The Chief Rabbi of England has written a very lovely letter in which at the end he cries tears about the mosques in Britain failing to denounce what Hamas has done. Well, let me ask Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer. In Jallianwala Bagh, next to the Golden Temple in India, a peaceful, unarmed crowd gathered to demand freedom, and General Dyer marched in and opened fire without even asking them to disperse. Do you denounce that? India and Pakistan have been demanding that since independence in 1947, that you denounce General Dyer as a murderer. Have you done that? When Dyer came back and there was uproar and he was arrested and tried, the British public had a campaign and they collected, we're talking about early last century, and they collected £5,000 for his defense. And he was freed, and it was held that he hadn't done anything wrong. Sunak and Starmer, do you denounce that? Chief Rabbi and Sunak and Starmer, do you denounce the Stern gang, the Irgun gang, the bombing of King David Hotel in Jerusalem, the killing of a whole village of Palestinians in Dar Yassin, the expulsion of 780,000 Palestinians from what became Israel? Do you denounce that? I haven't seen that such denunciation from any synagogue. And then British France and Israel connived and conspired and asked, and Israel attacked Egypt without any provocation. And the British and the French pretended that butter would melt in their mouths. But they had connived with Israel. Rishi Sunak, do you denounce that? Keir Starmer, do you denounce that? Chief Rabbi of England, do you denounce that? That conspiracy? Yes, it's easy to talk of denouncing things, isn't it? Let me give you one more example and see if any of you gentlemen will denounce that. Churchill rerouted food supplies from India, from Bengal, to the UK for British Army. As a result, there was a famine in Bengal and 2 million Bengalis died of starvation. Look at, there was one civil servant who protested at this being done, who predicted that there will be famine and mass starvation and deaths of millions. He wrote a memo to Churchill. Do you denounce Churchill's comments written in his own handwriting on that memo, saying these are just bloody Indians? Who cares? My job is to protect my soldiers. Do you denounce Churchill's murder of 2 million Indians? You honor Churchill. You put a great big statue of him outside the Houses of Parliament. And you ask me to denounce the killing of 1,400 people. Why don't you look in the mirror yourselves and see how you have behaved over the years? But I say one thing to Muslims. I can stand here and make all these emotional and fine speeches and so on, but nothing will change. Nothing will change unless you unite and you stand together and help each other fight Islamophobia, fight hatred of Muslims, until all of you from across the world demand a free Palestinian state and cut off all trade ties with the West until that is achieved and a truly independent Palestinian state is created on the West Bank, not what we have now, a state which is policed by Israel, where Arabs are not allowed to go out of their homes, where there are certain streets where only Jews can walk down. But that cannot be achieved unless you are united. And the British and the West, they have always created this unity amongst Muslims because it serves their political ends. Remember how Israel came into being. The Arabs attacked, Arab Muslims, Sunni Muslims attacked Turkish Sunni Muslims and defeated them. And the result was that the British and the French, rather than making the Arabs independent, started to rule over them and decided to create Israel. If you cannot see the creation of Israel was the result of your disunity and fighting each other, even after that example, if you cannot see, then God help you, because you will remain in this humiliating state with everyone degrading you, degrading and humiliating you. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barrun rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Straight rows, please. Ready? Yeah. Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانهر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. أشهد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أستغفر الله أستغفر الله أستغفر الله. We will now say funeral prayers in absentia, Ghaibana Namaz-e-Janaza, for the Palestinians who've been murdered in Gaza and the West Bank. And also, of course, for our brother Anayat Muhammad, who used to be the president of our Jamaat in Trinidad and Tobago. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. I pray that Allah gives all our Muslim brothers and sisters the wisdom to see that our strength lies in our unity, and that we work towards that so that we have one Islamic country from Morocco all the way to Indonesia, rather than small countries which are fighting each other. So with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, regardless of your religion, caste, creed, sect, nationality, color, etc., may Allah keep the whole of humanity under His protection, under His wing. And if you are facing difficulties and trials, may Allah ease them for you. And may Allah protect and look after our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And may they remain steadfast under the terrible trial that they are facing. And may Allah open some way to ease their burden for them. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.